And it was sculpted by the granddaughter of Sir Winston Churchill, whose Masonic apron can be seen right there in the British Lodge if you want to go there. This is masonry. This is masonry. And in this cathedral, they also have the blessing of the beasts, where all the animals, cows and goats and bears and all kinds of creatures, horses are brought in. They poo all over the place, and then all these animals are blessed. Interesting. So, a female Christ. And here's an interesting webpage, Sinister Sites, and it tells you the destruction of New York City, including the Twin Towers, sculpted right on the building, because this cathedral is a work in progress. Everything is changed a little bit every year, something is added. Just like the Jesuits have a work in progress. And there's the pillar showing the destruction of New York City with the twin cities and the smoke going up behind it. Just as you saw in The Simpsons, just as you saw in Michael Jackson's release. Is there something going on here behind the scenes? But not only that, they also have the Temple of Understanding in this cathedral, which is the United Nations organization which is there to bring about a one world religion, which we saw in the previous lecture has already been accomplished by the signing of the Unity of Religious Agreement. So we are heading towards a mindset that all religions need to come together. Who's the enemy? Who's the enemy? The enemy is the extremist. And the extremist is going to kill us. And the extremist is going to cut our head off. And he's coming to bomb me right here. And he's going to put a smart bomb in this place. And he's going to blow us to smithereens, etc. Fear is the mechanism of herding people into a camp. Now, I'm not interested, let me make this plain, of whether my allegories are right or whether they are wrong, whether they are spot on or whether they are off track. It's not relevant. The question is, where's it leading to? Because they say the ends justifies the means. If the end result is in accordance with what the Bible tells us is going to happen, then I know who's behind it, irrespective of whether I'm right or wrong. Amen. That's the point. So let's have a look and see where it's heading. Former British Foreign Secretary Robin Cook, a very fit man, very active, just suddenly dropped dead on his morning walk. But leave it at that. He said, the truth is, this is now, he's standing in front of number 10 Downing Street, high politician, high position in the establishment. He just got fed up and he said, the truth is there is no Islamic army or terrorist group called Al-Qaeda, and any informed intelligence officer knows this. He said, but there is a propaganda campaign to make the public believe in the presence of an identified entity representing the devil, only in order to drive the TV watcher to accept the unified international leadership for a war against terrorism. The country behind this propaganda is the United States. So he said. And then he died. So there is no Al-Qaeda. Now, any informed person will tell you that Al-Qaeda was created, funded by the powers of be in the United States and elsewhere in the world, united, trained by the very organizations which became their super enemies in the end. It's a front organization. It doesn't exist. What does he say? It doesn't exist. If it has outlived its usefulness, you replace it with another one that doesn't exist. Even though it has a name, ISIS, and even though it is prominent, and even though it apparently chops heads off of trained Jesuits. I don't believe a word of it, personally. There's an agenda. And I have a Bible that tells me what the agenda is. And I need to focus on what does the Bible tell me the agenda is. The agenda is the destruction of Christ and his followers. That's the agenda. There's no other agenda. My enemy is not over there. My enemy is right here. Jean-Louis Secundo, a Jesuit, born in Uruguay and residing in Canada, wrote Theology and the Church in 1985, which carries the subtitle, A Response to Cardinal Ratzinger and a Warning to the Church. Here's a Jesuit publicly telling the Pope to get lost. Now, of course, we know that the two are in cahoots, and we know that the one is the general, and he can listen to a command or he can disregard a command, etc., and that there is a tunnel between them and that they chat on a regular basis as to how to plan the Hegelian dialectic. Now, this is what he writes, and I want you to listen carefully to what he says. This is a Jesuit writing. As such, the book is a defense of every Jesuit priest that shoulders a carbine. Now, notice what the Jesuits do. Shoulders a carbine, joins the jungle guerrillas. It makes clear why Jesuits can be ministers with portfolio in Marxist governments, why Jesuits can attack John Paul on his teaching on sexual morality. So the Pope says, the white Pope says, contraceptives are evil, we mustn't do this, we must have decent relationships. And the other ones will say, hand out condoms, hand out free this, free sex, free that. Hegelian dialectic, we'll see how it works in a moment. Why Jesuits spend their days and their lives solving union problems. Who's behind the unions? One of the means to bring about a time of trouble such as never was. Jesuits. Organizing sugarcane workers, running factories, constructing low-cost housing, help Planned Parenthood Federation of America spread the use of contraceptives, run nationwide hospitals, dispensary networks, organize political demonstrations for this and against that, according to the issues of the day are presented by the teaching authority of the People's Church. These are the actions of the new faith, true to the new theology, according to which the material needs of men must be the prior object of the Church's effort. Not the spreading of the gospel. Who cares about the spreading of the gospel? Let's tread on him. Let's crush him. So, according to this Jesuit, in which lines of work are the Jesuits involved? Every single thing. Every single thing. And if we think they don't exist, it's because they don't want us to believe that they exist. They are everywhere. So, the Pope says, that Francis said, oh, I lament this new legislation that came out in the United States of America. We have to talk about morality. And what is these foot soldiers? What do? Here is Cardinal Dolan. He's the new man on the block as the head chief knight of Malta in the United States. He took over from Cardinal Egan, who died. And there he is. And here he says that the cardinal was the most wonderful thing under the sun. And his first official job, here he is, marching through the streets of New York, parade at the first ever gay activist group. So you think the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. They know exactly what they're doing. This is Hegelian dialectic. But what is interesting, there was a backlash. Cardinal Timothy Dolan, Grand Marshal, despite backlash from the faithful Catholics, unhappy with the organizers' decision to allow an open homosexual activist group to march the event. But Dolan said, I'm as radiant as the sun. So thanks be to God for the honor and the joy, said Cardinal Dolan on Tuesday morning. Isn't that interesting? Thanks be to God for the honor and the joy. Catholic commentator Michael Voris and his team present at the parade were able to question Dolan on his decision during the press scrum. Your Eminence, do you have anything to say to the loyal Catholics who find what you're doing here a great scandal to the faith? No, come on in. We'd love to have you, Dolan replied. The controversial decision prompted the Catholic League and at least one Catholic school to pull out of the parade, while nearly 5,000 people signed a petition urging Cardinal Dolan to withdraw from the event. He wouldn't. The cardinal refused to back down. He said, I have no problem with the decision at all. I think the decision is a wise one, etc., etc., etc. So the Catholic Church is well suited to absorb into its ranks those who wish to die in their sins, as well as those who wish to be saved by their works. Anyone is welcome, depending on which camp you want to stand. Now, let's see where the war on terror and dialectic thinking leads us. I just showed you that to show how they manipulate minds. Je suis Charlie. Of course, the Simpsons took it up. It was a major terrorist attack. The world is afraid of the jihadists. The world is afraid of Jihadi John. He's coming with his knife. So let's kill a few people here and let's kill a few people there. Didn't the general say we can sacrifice our own as well, so that eventually we can achieve our objective? So the Simpsons have sympathy with Jesse Charlie. Muslims again call to outlaw defamation of religion, with exceptions. We don't want defamation of religion. They tried to get this act through the United Nations. It was rejected, where they say you're not allowed to say anything against any other religion. We want this law. Now, when the church asks it, they say church and state is separate. We're not going to do it. So let's get the jihadists to ask for it. Let's get them to ask for it. Let's ask a front organization to ask for it. And the German parliamentarian, Schäuble, said, gezielte Tötung. We should be able to permit targeted death penalty. Do you know the death penalty has been removed in the world? But the Bible says, what does the Bible say? When the mark of the beast is promulgated, what are they going to say? You won't be able to buy and sell, and eventually there'll be a death decree. Oh, how can this happen? Here the parliamentarians are already saying, if it's a terrorist, and we just have to redefine that word, terrorist, take him out. Take him out. Isn't it interesting how these terrorists manage to escape all the time? Nobody ever catches them. Nobody ever knows where they are. But the press has regular discussions with them, as well as Jesuit priests. Read the press. Read the press. Nobody knows where they are. The mighty CIA can't catch them. And ISIS, well, they're the greatest enemy the world has ever seen. The United States says, no, we're not putting boots on the ground. If the Iraqi army can't do it, well, they'll have to learn through their pain. We're not going to do it. And the other television says, excuse me, how do the weapons end up in ISIS's hand? Oh, they've confiscated it. They've confiscated the tank, yes. Where do they get all the anti-aircraft from? Did they go to Safeway supermarket and go and buy some of those things? Who supplies weapons like that? How do they get those weapons? Ask yourself some questions here. If this is the greatest enemy the world has ever faced, why not confront it? No, no, no. Send a pathetic army that you want to lose in the first place anyway. Send them to do it, so you hit two birds with one stone. This is strategy of the most brilliant kind. So, the White House resists calls to focus on Islamist terrorism at three-day extremism conference. No, no, no. We cannot say the problem is only the Islamists. The problem is extremism. But who's chopping off the heads? Oh, well, excuse me, who's apparently chopping off the heads? It's Jihadi John, it's ISIS. We've got to be afraid of ISIS. Are we going to condemn them? No, we're only condemning extremism. This is fascinating stuff. The international conference, which begins Tuesday in Washington, will seek ways of deterring homegrown terrorism, has been criticized by Republicans for failing to single out Islamist extremism for particular scrutiny. I mean, look at the terrorist attacks. How many heads do you want to lose? How many people do you want to see dead? They're the problem. No, they're not the problem. I wonder who the real problem is. Let's see. Pope Francis, Paris attacks, the result of deviant form of religion. And